When I was a kid, I was obsessed with America's Next Top Model. I watched that show with my sisters, and we would pretend that we were models walking on the runway or smiling with our eyes. I pictured myself growing up to be tall and thin, like it was a fact of life. 14 years later, and I'm 5'3" with no growth spurt in sight. I was 7 years old when the first season of the show aired, and thanks to gender socialization, I thought that the ideal feminine beauty was to be slender, soft, and hairless, like our book mentions, and like all those contestants that I admired on the show. I was well versed in gender display, thanks to all of these fashion competition shows, and I thought that once I was an adult woman, all I had to do was be thin, wear makeup, and nice clothes to be considered beautiful. Perhaps if I was exposed to all different kinds of beauty, I wouldn't have grown up with such a narrow mind. Our textbook states that an intersectional approach to representations of the feminine beauty ideal focuses on the fact that beauty, at least in the mainstream mass market media culture, continues to be defined primarily as white, able-bodied, young, and heterosexual. This is still true today, but was especially true before the year 2010 or so. Threshold Concepts of Women Gender Studies focuses on a study of bridal magazines from 2006 where Frisbee and Engstrom asked the question, how often and in what roles are African American women represented as brides and bridesmaids in advertisements in national bridal magazines over the past 5 years? They looked at over 6,000 ads in 57 issues of 3 different bridal magazines and found that less than 2% of the ads featured an African American woman as a bride and no issues featured an African American woman on the cover. This relative absence of marginalized groups from mass media is known as symbolic annihilation. In class, we watched Killing Us Softly, which highlighted on all the issues and problems with the representation of women in advertising and also the lack of minority women in advertising. When minority women were featured, the ads were often stereotypical and reinforced the dominant culture's ideas about these marginalized groups. However, I will be focusing on how advertising has improved in recent years and how many brands are including diverse people in their ads. In 2014, Aerie announced that they were kickstarting the campaign #AerieReal, in which they announced that they were no longer photoshopping their models. They also started to include more models of different body types rather than the very tall, very thin standard. They released a series of ads with the words, "The girl in this photo has not been retouched." Shopping on their website is a much more enjoyable experience now because there are models with stretch marks, lines from where their skin folds, fat on their stomach, and just many different body types being represented. The response to Aerie's new campaign was overwhelmingly positive from the media. Here is a clip explaining the Aerie Reel in more detail.
Body image activists are going corporate. American Eagle's lingerie and underwear line Aerie just released a new campaign called Aerie Real, where none of their models in their photos are photoshopped. It reads, "The girl in this photo has not been retouched. The real you is sexy." Here too, the model's tattoo is front and center and nothing has been removed or edited. And this one is my favorite, a gorgeous smiling woman in a lime green bra and underwear. Very, very adorable underwear if I say so myself, with the hashtag #RealAerie. This reads, quote, "Time to think real, time to get real. No supermodels, no retouching, because the real you is sexy." And lastly, a call to action from the clothing store. It reads, "Dear Aerie girls, we think it's time for a change. We think it's time to get real and think real. We want every girl to feel good about who they are and what they look like. That means no more retouching our girls and no more supermodels. Why? because there is no reason to retouch beauty. We think the real you is sexy. XOXO, Aerie. Well, Aerie, I am certainly inspired. What a wonderful movement, and not to mention very gorgeous photos.
Since Aerie stopped photoshopping their models, their sales have grown tremendously in 2015 and 2016. Sales grew by 20% in 2015 and 32% in the first quarter of 2016 alone. While most of the retail industry is suffering, Aerie is doing just fine because they are listening to what their customers want by promoting real beauty. Not only are there companies that are stopping Photoshop, but there are also brands that are striving to include different types of people in their advertising as well. In their "This is Wholesome" ad, Honey Maid includes different minority groups, a father with tattoos, and a gay couple with kids. By titling the ad "This is Wholesome," they are making a statement that there is nothing wrong with any of the families shown, and they are all simply wholesome. Cheerios also released an ad featuring a biracial family.
Hey, Gracie. You know how our family has daddy and mommy?
And me.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty soon, you're gonna have a baby brother.
And a puppy.
Deal.
Unfortunately, there is still controversy that pops up whenever brands release an ad highlighting families or people that exist outside of the societal norm of white, able-bodied, young, and heterosexual. Although the people who find these advertisements controversial may be very vocal about their concerns, they are not the majority. A survey by Baby Center and YouGov found that after surveying 2,000 people, 80% of parents like to see diverse families in advertisements, and about 2 in 5 millennial parents said they were more likely to purchase products from companies that feature diverse families in their ads. The survey also found that 40% of families reflect modern types, meaning single-parent households, parents who live together but aren't married, LGBTQ parents, mixed-race parents, and households with a stay-at-home dad. It seems like advertising is changing, not only to reflect what consumers want, but also to reflect the everyday life of an American. Although advertising is changing, most of our media still only reflects the ideal beauty standard and identities that exist within the societal norm. In order to keep advertising on the path to striving for more diversity, we must support the brands who bring different identities in the mainstream culture by buying their products.